So, all right. Yeah. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you. First and foremost, I can see Dr. Brian Imri. Hello. Good morning, sir. Okay. I can see.
Good morning.
Good morning. I can see Professor Dean Go. Dean, are you there? And I can see Prof. Lau. Prof. Lau is there as well. Yeah. By the way, this is a roundtable format, so as much as possible, we'll hopefully we can actually get to see everyone because it's meant to be a very small, close-knitted group for roundtable discussion. It's not a webinar, so we hope to be able to interact and exchange ideas, get your feedback in terms of your challenges, yeah, at the same time. So hopefully we get to know each other better in terms of. So don't be shy. To turn on your video camera so that later we can actually have a free flow of exchange of ideas. So with that, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Disruption, the future of higher education online roundtable this morning, hopefully to kickstart 2021. Yeah, my name is Michael Lai, and I'm going to be your moderator today for our panel of distinguished higher education leaders, technology leaders, disruption leaders, and also some friends here. So digital technology has disrupted our everyday lives, and now it's coming to higher education as well. So the innovation will not only change, I guess, in terms of education contents, but also the student experience, which I'm sure Dr. Cram will be sharing that a lot just in a few minutes. This will also impact student enrollment, student attraction, as well as the student retention. So things are about to get very interesting for higher education. So we have kept the participation of the roundtable to about 10 distinguished guests to ensure intimate, close-knit, and free-flow exchange of ideas and insight. Yeah. So as Thomas Dewar once said, right, minds are like parachutes. They only function when open, right? So hopefully with open minds, we all can learn from each other and pick up one disruptive idea that you can immediately implement for your university and make a difference in the new normal for higher education. So I'm very honored indeed today to moderate today's roundtable due to its relevancy, timeliness, and the potential impact it could have on your university. So before we kick off with our first panelists today, just a quick few reminders so that we could all enjoy today's roundtable with few interruptions. And together with the support, we could make today's session fun, interactive, and productive for all. All right, number one, please remember to mute your mic when you're not speaking so that your secrets are not being heard by all of us. Yeah. Okay. Number two, because we've attended many webinars where we can hear a lot of secrets from people when they're talking without muting their mic. Number two, please do keep calm and stay connected in the event of any technical interruptions, especially on bandwidth, because we are actually in 4 different countries, actually 5 different countries dialing in right now. We have Malaysia, we have Singapore, we have China, we have Canada, we have USA. All right. Please always show your love and encouragement to our distinguished panelists who have voluntarily and selflessly come forward to share their thoughts and insight with us today. And also, if you do have any challenges with the microphones or your speaker setting, please do not hesitate to just send us a note in the chat box. We'll definitely get our technical team to help you with. And also, so we're going to start the session with each of our 3 panelists, which is Dr. Cram, Mr. Paul Duffy, as well as Mr. Lim Yao Boon, to actually share their thoughts on today's topic, yeah, for about 10 minutes, each one of them. And after that, our 3 panelists have shared their thoughts. We will open to all for exchange of ideas, interactions, comments, and free flow of questions, right? So with that, let me first introduce our first panelist, someone who has spearheaded and established nanoscience and nanobiomedicines, things that I'm really interested in, but have no time to actually know more about programs in Canada, all right? So, and who has helped establish Ryerson University's augmented learning experience, which is abbreviated as RALE, R-A-L-E. So he will be sharing with us Ryerson University challenges and experience in implementing RALE. So now, all the way from Toronto, Canada, Ryerson University Dean of Faculty of Science, Dr. David Cran. Over to you, Dr. Cran. We have a virtual welcome to you, Dr. Cran. Over to you.
I love it. That's awesome. So thanks a lot, and I really look forward to discussions that we can have today together about this. I think our experience at Ryerson is probably very similar to everybody else's experience. About a year ago, when we were all kind of laughing, oh, the pandemic's not going to be that big a deal. Why is everybody covering their faces and that sort of stuff? And then within a few short weeks, WHO declared the pandemic and government started to take it seriously. And basically we were asked as a university to shut down. And that's really hard particularly for science curricula, because I'm such a firm believer that you learn science by doing hands-on science. So this was a huge mental challenge for me to get my mind around a life where we'd hoped we would only be offline for a few weeks. But as the pandemic started to accelerate, it became clearer and clearer that we would be delivering our curriculum online for at least the fall term and probably the winter term as well. And so we started to scramble, as good scientists will, to find out a way that we could deliver something that was close to a hands-on experience in our labs. And I hadn't had much connection with augmented or virtual reality, other than the great conversations that I'd had with Paul Duffy. And so I think RAIL started off as probably a dinner meeting between two friends where I was crying about what we needed to get done in Ryerson, and Paul said, well, like, my company does things like that. Maybe we should brainstorm some ideas. And that's basically where RAIL started. Could we create, which started off modestly as thinking about a few labs that we could test drive for some students over the summer and get ready for the fall term, into something that became a total experience platform for the students for our undergrad labs. We'd wanted to bring all the labs into the mix. It turned out it was more practical to develop just chemistry and biology labs to start with, but physics is in the mix as well. So we got a great team together and started to storyboard out some ideas for what the labs were that we were doing and how we could incorporate augmented reality into the mix. Nextech was great to create some of these objects initially, and we could get a sense for how it all might work. And that got us thinking differently right away. Like it disrupted everybody on my team's way of imagining what online learning could be. And frankly, I was a skeptic going in, like being an experimental scientist. And I still believe that we have to do some hands-on work, but this platform and the idea of using three-dimensional objects on someone's smart device really started me to think about the way that students learn and how they could learn differently online. One of my kids is in engineering, and he's a total kinesthetic learner. So right from grade one, his teachers knew that they had to keep him moving in order to keep him learning. And one of the things that we never anticipated about putting augmented reality objects into a learning environment is that you can get up and walk around those. And there's something different about the way students learn, at least the way some students learn, when they're actually up and active. And that's what you're doing in a lab. So I think one of the great challenges with doing so-called lab work through a computer or through your smart device is that you tend to sit, like we're all sitting right now, and the learning experience is vastly different. So even though our students aren't actually touching things, they're able to almost touch them. And in fact, the first time you saw a microscope flash by there, and I think Paul's going to show another microscope, when I was demonstrating the first few labs of RAIL to some of the students in my research lab, they're actually reaching around behind their phone to try and do something with the microscope. It was that much of an engaging experience. And although the students that we've deployed this to, so we've created on the order of 40 labs now, and we've test driven them, put them in front of students over the last 8 months. They love the videos. They're interestingly getting their minds around the augmented reality part of it. So we encourage them to do that by getting up and walking around and actually eventually giving them a little bit of a bonus mark for doing that. And we believe that they'll actually learn better because of that. So I've got a team of approximately 5 technicians that are working on these 40 labs along with Nextech over the past, I guess, 8 months or so of development. And there was a learning curve for it, but now we can bang out labs like crazy. Like the last 30 labs, I think we've accomplished building those in the last month, basically. The student feedback has been really strong on it. They really love this experience, and some of the students have had other online experiences that aren't the same. It got my technicians thinking about different ways of imagining pedagogy in the lab online as well. One of the great things about this approach is that you can provide a safe space for students to make mistakes. And that's hard to do in a real chemistry lab where things could actually explode. So here we can do troubleshooting by setting students up to make some mistakes and have them learn that part of science as well. And that's rarely something that you can easily accomplish in an undergrad lab, that you're pushing potentially 1,500 students a term through that experience. The whole Rails setup has the opportunity, like in Zoom, for breakout rooms. So for research groups or for lab groups to talk to each other, breakout, we can use it. Yeah, there's the Ryerson mascot there. One of the labs is a poisoning of the Ryerson mascot, and they're trying to figure out what the poison is and where it came from. Yeah, breakout rooms. We can see the future of this. So right now, we were all trying really hard to find a way to deliver a reasonable experience for the students online. And we all want to believe with vaccines that we're going to be coming back onto campus, like maybe as early as the fall. But all this hard work is just going to translate into better learning for the students. The people that have gone through a science degree can probably remember pre-labs, where they'd sit down and they'd read about the lab they're about to walk into. And that is nothing like actually seeing it in 3D on your phone. So especially if they're going to be manipulating instruments that are unfamiliar to them. And so we believe that what we've done here for the labs will work really great as pre-lab demonstrations for the students. This sort of stuff you can take into the classroom as well. And even moments where teaching assistants are trying to demonstrate something in the lab, and it's a kind of gather around me experience where the students in the back don't actually get to see what's going on in the TA's hands. This would allow that to happen, where the students, since they have smart devices anyways, can all lift up their smart device and see the augmented reality object that the TA is talking about. So I think that we're really happy about the way this has gone. It hasn't and it can't ever replace the hands-on science that all students have to do, but it can certainly augment the learning experience that they have. The challenges of the learning curve of how to make these things, like that's probably one of the bigger challenges. But to be honest, like the necessity just served that, and our people really got into it and figured out how best to storyboard ideas out, and then with Nextech's help create objects in order to create these labs. So I think moving forward, the only thing that limits the application of Rail is someone's innovation and creativity. Basically, if we thought about something, we could create a 3D object that represented it. And that's been really, really enlightening for us. So lots of other stories to go along with it, but I think that gives you an overview. The AR is really cool. The whole platform makes a big difference too. Those students know that they're going to one-stop shop for their labs at Ryerson that's consistent from one course to the next. And they seem to really appreciate that too, which is different than maybe having a bunch of VR labs from different sources. So thanks for listening to me go on about this for a little bit. Happy and really looking forward to further discussions and hearing how everybody in the room has tried to be innovative and overcome the challenges of online education. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Cram, for your interesting and also insights about how the challenges of setting up your Ryerson augmented learning experience. We'll definitely come back to you later. I personally have a few questions I'd love to learn from you. So now let me invite our second panelist, who is an accomplished and recognized leader in the augmented reality and artificial intelligence field. The creator of the humogram and inventor of multiple patents for augmented reality and holographic telepresence. He's also a serial entrepreneur with 27 years experience successfully starting, expanding, diversifying, and selling technology companies. It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Paul Duffy, president of Nextech AR Solutions, to share how Nextech has collaborated with Ryerson University, as shared by Dr. Cram just now, on the implementation of Ryerson augmented learning experience. Over to you, Paul.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm in the sunny town of Toronto. And
All right.
does that sound okay? You can hear me all right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so to Dave's point, we literally got together and, David said, look, I know you kind of live in this land of holograms and, I've been thinking, could we utilize some of this technology given the rapid, we could just leave that video running if you want for a little bit and I'll pull up my phone and actually show some holograms, if that's okay. But the idea was that, what we were looking to do really was think back to, what would be the net benefit to the students, right? And how could we utilize this technology to help with the pedagogy, with the delivery of the learning, and most importantly, with the student outcomes. And, to Dave's point, we literally got down and, engineered out the first version, brought it into, a select group of students, like all good things, learned and iterated. And, as we went through the fall term, we got really, really good at the pipeline. And to Dave's point, there's virtually nothing at this stage we can't build, and you can see the mushrooming in the scale and size of what's possible. So, because we're talking a little bit around disruption today, let me just show you this firsthand. Let's leave this video running just because I think it'll give a good contrast. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully we can do that anyways. Share, here we go. Sorry, Michael, you might need to, maybe there we go.
Okay, you got to be, yeah. Are you co-hosting it?
I don't know, to be honest. Let's try.
Yeah, just try.
Yeah, it just keeps telling me stop sharing. Maybe you need to stop sharing on your end, and then I'll start sharing on mine.
All right. Maybe, yeah. Okay. All right.
No problem. Here we go.
All right. We got it.
Yeah, it's all good. So, for everybody on the call, if you want, you can, at any time, download our app. It's free. It's on the Apple and Google stores. It's called ARitize. Just, Google 3D AR or something like that. You'll find it. And basically everything I'm showing you is readily available on the app for you to do. So just give me a sec here. It'll, twin up. I think you can see my phone now. So it's very simple for the students, basically. As you saw in the videos, they literally just take their camera, sweep it over the actual screen, and it will trigger the hologram. And so to give you a little sense of, what these holograms look like, I'll just go in. I have a super secret backend code called Paul that you can type in if you wish to try some of these. But what is very, very interesting about all of this is that, the kids literally swim, here's my house. I basically point my phone, I find a surface, I literally click on it, and I've got basically us here, and I've got a microscope here. And it, you know, I can pinch and zoom and rotate. And to Dave's point, the kids can go around and try to touch the back of it. They can click different pieces of it, have it come in, see different sizes. You know, you can go back and, you know, let me see here if I can bring up maybe this one here, go in, have a look at it. It's all basically very, very easy to do. What's really powerful about this, though, is from a student interaction point of view, there's a lot of different formats that you can create holograms for. Let's see if this audio will actually come up. If I click here, I can actually beam in the instructor. And can you hear her talking? She's literally explaining to us the lab. And as I go through it, I can basically click, and now, again, I can pinch and zoom, and I can go through the lab. And I can look around, and as I do it, I'll basically interact with it. I'll keep stepping through it. I can literally get up and walk around it, by the way, just so you guys can see that. You know, so it's very, very useful. And these things, they almost become a little bit addictive for the students because they're actually quite fun to do. And, you know, you work through it, and you've got your book with you, and you're working through the lesson. But ultimately, what we came to discover was that, and Michael, I'll hand it back to you to bring the video back up and everything, and I'll just talk. Let me see here if I can stop sharing this. Oh, here we go. Stop sharing. Sorry, guys. Okay.
Right. Yeah, we'll bring the video up again. Tay, please.
Oh, no problem. So just a little glimpse into, you know, kind of what the labs look like. Obviously, they go into a structured learning or lesson, if you would. Ample opportunity to pull in documents, download test sheets, scorecards, etc. But you know what we believed was happening on the platform. Sorry, my little WebEx thing's bouncing around. What we wanted to be able to do was utilize the content management environment, the 2D asynchronous and synchronous capability that's amply available, and then twin or marry it with augmented reality. The reason for it is we believe, particularly from a disruption point of view, that augmented reality over the next 10 years will become probably the primary form of mass communication. And that sounds like a bold statement, but the idea of it is that you're able to take photorealistic 3D volumetric objects and experiences, overlay them today through the viewing field of your phone, make them interactive enough for the user to feel reward, right? But at the same time, because it is on your phone, you've got all the other levels of interactivity. We believe that over the next few years, what will happen is that the phone will be replaced by a pair of lightwear glasses. And this eyewear will allow us to see a similar level of functionality. You're starting to see glimpses of this now in some of the VR and AR headsets like HoloLens and others. They're still, you know, the form factor is still quite large, but eventually they will find their way to a lightweight pair. Most likely that pair of glasses will be twinned to your phone. And so everything that I was showing you there with the phone and the way that it would interact and pull from the screen is probably going to be the first path forward for a fully immersive system. And from a learning point of view, this is quite fundamental because it opens the doors up now to all forms of instruction that normally you could not actually deliver through any form of synchronous or asynchronous delivery through the computer. And that's where we see the disruption happening. To Dave's point about how there's this notion of a one-stop shop where Rail or Ryerson is able to collaboratively work with Nextech. So we worked as a team and still do, frankly, to build this content. But this content is unique to Ryerson. It's their content. It's in the context of their labs. It's their people that are in these videos. It's all almost basically personalized. So from a student's point of view, it's phenomenal that they've got this material and it's a consistent look, a consistent feel. So our opinion is that when lightweight eyewear becomes available, the phone will be basically powering it. It gives us the ability to take directly from the screen and beam into the room we think from that point of view, the disruption in higher ed will be quite significant over the next 5 to 10 years. So hopefully I haven't taken up too much time there, Michael, that I run over, because when I start talking, I don't stop.
No worries at all, Paul. It's great. Thank you so much, Paul, for your interesting and also brilliant and fun demo on how augmented reality implemented and also disrupting the future of education. In fact, I mean, to my belief, it's not just the future; it's already being done right now, right? As one has been shown by
Dave is the
Dr.
trailblazer.
All right, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So with that, let me quickly introduce our the third panelist. Okay, who is also a technology industry veteran with over 25 years of experience in strategy, marketing, planning, operation, business management industry in Asia Pacific market. He has also held leadership positions with global enterprise technology companies, driving marketing and strategies for the blue chip global tech companies such as IBM, where he led marketing management, Motorola, where he was head of strategy and planning, and SAP, where he was vice president of marketing for the Asia Pacific market. He's also currently the NextTech AR Solutions Asia Pacific Managing Director and President. My good friend and Mr. share his thoughts about the disruptions on higher education. Over to you both.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah. Oh, that was a long introduction. Before I joined NextTech, I was a disruption management consultant. I focus on how companies should disrupt themselves. That was before COVID, right? And I remember I spent a fair bit of time sharing with people how companies like Alibaba tell themselves, we better disrupt ourselves before we better kill ourselves before someone kill us. Statements like this made by Alibaba chairman Daniel Zhang was quite impressive. And but when COVID came, I don't have to convince people to disrupt themselves anymore, right? The disruption took place, and in fact, I've been asked many times this question, what is the future like for education, and what kind of disruptions is happening? I personally, myself, I'm an academic myself. I teach in Singapore Institute of Management. So I remember clearly end of March, I was told a week before April that I was told to switch my course online. It's a 14 sessions module. And while the technology was there to do it, the content was not ready for that, right? It was a major disruption to the students, disruption to the planned pedagogy that I had, because mine required a lot of group discussion, interaction. The class size was 70 and 50, and I have students trapped in Malaysia because they went back over the weekend, and then suddenly they can't come back to Singapore anymore. There were no bandwidth. Some of them left the computer in Singapore, because they're just going back balik kampung for a weekend, right? And we were using D2L Bongo system. The system was overwhelmed. They were ready for some kind of online learning, but they weren't ready for everyone go online, right? So I was struggling. I can't see the student because the video can't come on. I'm not sure who is on, who is not. We changed the exam format to online, changed the assessment method, changed the question structure, no MCQ in case they copy each other. It was just a complete disruption, but the show must go on. So I recall that the experience at the end of the day for myself, when I feedback and also student feedback on the course, was just not good. And because we weren't ready, right? And but this disruption we all knew is due to COVID-19. We're forced into this situation, and we're forced to deal with the change of the way we deliver. But I think more importantly, not only the disruption to the experience, many universities are under severe stress globally, right? And I read recently that almost all of them had to reduce their operation budget. Some are by the tens of millions in the US, right? So I can understand and appreciate what everyone is going through. But I think the truth is that higher education has been going through disruption for a while, and it's not something that is happening just because of COVID. Actually, more than 20 years ago, online education has really made education, especially higher education, exponentially more affordable and accessible. Especially when massive online open course service provider like EDX that was established by Harvard and MIT in 2012. They were aiming to remove barriers to education, but the take up shot up, and the truth is that they're just exploring how to change change the monetization effort of the online content they've created. So actually, that was to me a real disruption to education, higher education in particular. I mean, the EDX alone, there are 3,000 courses, and last year during the pandemic, I read the statistics that about 35 million new learners registered across all the MOOC, right? All the massive online open course service provider. 35 million. So I know that typically they charge about $100. The courses are free, but they charge about $100 for certification, all right, that they completed the course. And the courses are between 6 to 14 weeks. It's not like those 1 hour, 2 hour sessions. It's a real course. I start calculating the numbers. If 10% of the 35 million pay for 10 of the courses, all right, that's about $35 million in revenue. If it's 20%, that's 70 million. But more importantly, from the student perspective, imagine a course is about 6 to 14 weeks, 10 courses, maybe 60 to 140 weeks. Now, 10 courses is only $1,000, all right, self-paced, a la carte. And if a student A come to me, as when I was working with SAP and IBM, and say that I've got 3 certified computer science courses from Harvard, 3 from MIT, 2 from Stanford, 1 from Yale, 1 from Ryerson, and student B comes to me and said, I've got a computer science degree from NUS. All right, I likely will look at student A more favorably because this guy is progressive. This guy is looking for things that he wants, and he knows how to assemble something that can position himself better than someone that is given a specific set of modules to follow through. So the attraction to me as on the corporate side will be someone that has actually done this, and at the same time has taken up part-time job doing some kind of coding or doing small startups because they have their own free time. They are not scheduled to attend classes. They really leverage their own ability to pick courses that they want. It could be just on cybersecurity, or it could be a mix of cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, blockchain, things that they combine together and say, look, I've got all this certification, and officially they can have all these brands on their shoulder, right? So the question here is that the degree from NUS, all right, at a point in time is more like a validation that I've completed my higher education, while the 10 certified courses really look like someone that's self-seeking education for themselves, right? They're looking for something that they want to learn and what they felt that was really suitable for the future. So I think this when students start to ask a question, if online learning is the same price and experience is different, should it be cheaper to the universities that today they're providing the campuses? It can be. I remember I read an article that some of the universities in America didn't change the price when they're all forced to learn from home, but what they paid for is that very premium experience to be in Harvard or to be in Stanford and so on and so forth. So students start to ask questions because now they know that they can actually get a Harvard degree just sitting at home. But should I pay more? All right. So it's a question that I'm thinking of. What will Harvard of the world do in the future? So I think from this shift, it is clear that the future of higher education will be shaped by definitely what Paul said earlier. All right, the whole technology progression, driven by 5G, mobile first, whether is it on the a phone, on iPad, or on wearables. They can learn from everywhere. and with immersive technologies such as AR, VR as well. What can they do differently, all right? And in case of what you see in Ryerson University and what Paul just shared, how AR has transformed the whole engagement process. And also definitely what kind of collaborative and interactive online tools that can be used to change the learning experience. The other thing that I think will shape the future of higher education will be the consumer, which is student behavior. I think that will change forever. You know, the value and the role that they place on the physical campus will also change. And therefore, there'll probably be future of redesigning how higher education will look like, how architecture will look like. I mean, I was trained in architecture school architecture in NUS. I spoke to a lot of my friends, and they are now telling me how they're rethinking about the future of campus, what it will look like to leverage e-learning environment. Do they have classroom anymore, or just all pockets of spaces to interact, to hang out, you know, to chill out? So with that, I think the pedagogy and the content structure also change because of technology, and the way how students perceive education and the value of the education is also important. The last one is that employees, all right, like I mentioned, you know, Googles of the world, how do they perceive the readiness of the graduates based on the current education system? So I think with that, I would say that I think universities that try to help and add value to produce student A, the one that I mentioned earlier, will definitely be more future ready. And as the world gets a bit flatter or flattened due to COVID-19, I think Malaysia is unique place because of your lower cost structure and your high level of English language to attract global online students that may not require in-campus experience and can leverage on advanced technology adoption. And if we can build things that are repeatable and scalable, the potential is there.
All right, Boon, thank you so much for your thought-provoking comments. Really appreciate. All right, so thank you to our three panelists for sharing their wonderful thoughts and insight. By the way, I just would like to welcome Professor Dato' Nuraini, who is the Malaysia National STEM Association. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether she can hear me. Yeah. So Professor Nuraini is the current National STEM Association President. Yeah. So, okay. So we have now come to the most exciting part, I believe, of this session. We have half an hour left on the future of higher education, which is the roundtable discussion. So I would definitely like to start off by maybe getting our distinguished guest here, whether it's Dato or whether it's Prof. Lau is here. I know my friend from various universities, from multimedia universities, from Dr. Brian Imbri from University of Wollongong. Yeah, we have quite a few universities here. So please, I guess maybe start off by what kind of challenges do you see or are you going through right now, especially at this time of global pandemic? Yeah, I mean, let's make it a free flow. Let's make it an open discussion so that we all can learn from each other.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Associate Professor Brian Emery. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor at UAW Malaysia, KDU. I just got a question because I see really the emphasis in terms of the discussion thus far today is really upon the application of AR in the STEM field. But I wonder if anyone's had experience in terms of applications into other fields, because I could imagine this being very useful in, for example, in culinary, in design, obviously nursing, which is STEM related, anything which requires hands-on sort of learning, I imagine would benefit from this. But also, you know, even the disciplines such as business. Now, for many of us coming from the private education sector, business, well, even in public universities, business is our bread and butter. Okay, business faculty, it's where it's our cash cow. Having case study type work where you could bring in into your lounge, if you like, okay, industry speakers, and they could be showing you what they're doing in their business, whether they're selling muffins or whatever. And likewise. So has anyone had any exposure to that sort of use of this technology?
Excellent comment, Dr. Brian. Yeah, Embry. Yeah. Well, to any of our panelists, Dr. Graham or Paul or Brooke?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to jump in. I know Dave is exploring a lot of different areas, so I won't kind of try to speak for him. But I can tell you that there's a number of applications for training in both the world of higher education and corporate learning as well, and other types of formal education and informal. I think you can see just based on these videos that are running, the uses and applications for frankly the ability to take from the computer and twin onto your phone a complete learning experience, a learning object, for lack of a better term. The ramifications of this and the level of disruption are quite profound. Just Brian, as you're talking there, you're riffing in real time about 6, 7, 8 different types of use cases, learning experiences. We see and hear this all the time. Dave took the bold step of reimagining what could be done for his students at Ryerson. Knocked it out of the park, frankly, with the application and the approach and obviously the results. And that is going to have, I think you're going to see a lot of repercussion. Students globally can access this level of learning, as you know, from literally, as long as they got a computer, some decent bandwidth. 5G is going to become very pervasive in the next 3 to 5 years. But this will work and stream in 3G and 4G. And your phones don't necessarily need to be the latest and greatest. In fact, mine's actually an iPhone X, soon to be outdated. I don't even think they'll support it. So I do believe that you're seeing a glimpse into the near-term future here when phones, computer screens, soon lightweight wearables will all converge. You're going to have 5G providing the bandwidth, ubiquitous bandwidth. We've in varying rural areas have AI in here as well, helping us out. The location of that burner on the table, the ability to map it, to anchor it, to keep it fixed in position. I mean, all of these bits have come together to really formulate this experience for the learner. So I think, I'm obviously an optimist, but I just think the aperture for this is just getting bigger and bigger, almost daily. I don't know, Dave, what do you think? Just to put you on the spot.
Well, like our dean of the Faculty of Communications and Design totally jumped on this as well. And so they do textiles, they do dance, music,
storytelling. Yeah.
So there's all sorts of applications there. And I've been reading like a number of education papers on AR. And it's funny, some of the writers are talking about the similarity between this and when printing words first came around, and that the idea that pedagogy has to drive whatever you're building from a technology point of view, like it's a good place to start from, but I think that just the adoption of this new technology actually will change the way we think about education. And so like the linear thought process for me is like anything 3D, anything that has a texture and a feel, if that's part of your learning experience, then obviously you should be bringing AR into the mix. But I believe there's going to be disruption beyond that as well, that it's going to bring in other things. And like Paul said with the heads-up display on the glasses, but I'm even thinking of like on campus, we've got some really crap lecture theaters at Ryerson. Like we're classic inner city. We'll do a class. We do classes in movie theaters. We're so desperate for space. And one of the challenges is line of sight in some of these classes. But if your lecturer is actually, a hologram on your phone, you can still be in the classroom. You can see that person like they're sitting on the desk. And so maybe the lines of sight in classrooms aren't so important anymore. So I mean, it's a great thought, Brian. Like let's not just think about these applications to STEM and the obvious ones, but like where beyond that can it be a great tool?
Yeah, actually, in fact, technology has been so advanced that you can actually stream hologram live, not just record it, and that will actually allow educators to be very flexible in the way they deliver the content, including having materials that they can show in a live hologram environment. I think the important thing that we consider is that we all have experienced Zoom fatigue, right? In one way or another. We're using WebEx. Thanks, Michael. Not many people use WebEx, but
Right.
the problem is that students, at least my student back then said, they sat there for 3-4 hours. It's exhausting. All right. How do we get them to move around with a second screen experience so that they are able to engage and stay alert and awake, and therefore enrich their learning experience? It's something that I think such technology will enable.
Excellent. I think we have Prof. Lau from Sunway University. Are you there?
Yeah,
I believe you have some comments to make.
yeah, I think just to add on to the discussion, I think
Right.
it will come, and I think we probably won't have the same application as what we see on the screen for areas that do not have a need for psychomotor experience, right? I think these are really lab-based kind of thing. I can imagine engineering, sciences definitely can use this as a probably like self-learning lab. And we are not talking about replacing real lab. I think that's something we need to know. In other areas, I think the focus is definitely more about the more immersive experience. So experiential learning, that now through virtual space, you can put yourself in a historical environment. You can put yourself in the stock market and experience that environment, right? While understanding why certain things happen. I think that is something we don't see through the example. But I think when we are talking about what Brian asked, I can imagine that is the future. The trick here is I can see this as how I think that example was very good, like how printing will change everything, and this could be the next thing. But on the other hand, we have also seen how technology came in, and even after 20 years, like e-learning, we are still struggling to maximize the potential. I will say, not downplaying the importance or the potential, but we still have to always believe all these are enablers, so that we must train people who know how to convert content efficiently, so that we do not do it for the sake of doing. I think that is a kind of blind spot we definitely have to remind each other. And finally, I think from my interaction with students, we also have to tell students, this is because sometimes I see students are kind of locked by their own perception and preferences, that only like through COVID, they know there's no choice and they are forced to take it. And many of them then came back and say, wow, it worked. So this kind of leap of faith, right? Sometimes the students are rather conservative too. The moment we try something new, and imagine the early adopter lecturers are penalized because they say, this is not fun, I want to go back to the lab, and they give bad ratings, and that discourages the academics to try out something good. I think it's really all these things must come in play, that we plan, we allow the transformation, and allowing everyone to fail while not being penalized. I think that will be all things that we better start discussing today, or else the innovation and disruption will not come. Yeah, just my sharing. Yeah, I don't think I'm as expert as many of you here.
No, excellent comment, Prof. I think especially when you talk about the immersive experience, I think back to Dr. Brian's earlier questions. What other faculty or what a discipline that it can be applied, right? Imagine if you are studying finance, you can actually bring New York Stock Exchange to your room, right? Yeah, the whole experience, immersive experience of a New York Stock Exchange, while you're learning how to trade the market or how to do a portfolio management, right? Yeah, so over to the rest of our guests and also our panelists.
Prof. Lau, I totally agree with you. I remember when I was in SAP, there was a big switch on how we develop our application one of the key driver was mobile first. Whatever you design, the next ERP, the next CRM is mobile first, right? Because mobile is kind of the main interface. And that changes the way we think, because we knew that's how people are going to consume. Because if you design a web page or a web interface with a desktop first, then mobile is always not so friendly to experience that. Similar to what you mentioned earlier about and also Professor Brian mentioned earlier, that if we start to think online first, then the content will leverage the technology. My experience is converting a physical lesson to online does not work at all, because it's not so easy to replicate the same experience. So you're absolutely right. If we understand technology better, how we can leverage it, what are technologies available to mesh together so that you can deliver the kind of interactive and engaging experience for students. Because of this, then when they come together in the campus, for example, they're experiencing different kind of engagement, interaction, hanging out, talking about what they did. And so I think those are things that we redesign the architecture, redesign the student, the education structure. We definitely see ourselves being future ready. That's the thing that I hope everyone will work towards.
Excellent. Any other comment or exchange of ideas? Yeah. Dato? Or
Hello.
yes.
Yes.
Hi, Dato.
Hi. Because like mine, of course, I'm with the University of Malaya. At the same time, I'm active with the National STEM Association, where I'm working a lot with B40 students, the graduate student. They are really hard hit on the COVID and the need on the using of a lot of shift on online with all this technology. There's is really is a difficult challenging to us lecturer and to us leaders, to how that we want to change the mindset of our lecturers and also the mindset of our students. And then like in public universities, we what we notice is that our lecturers and our students normally depending a lot on the government subsidy, not like our colleague from the private universities. They they be able to plan to whatever disruption happening. But in public, this is a very challenging situation, especially most of our students with PTP, the loan, and I was wondering, how do we want to balance between the like what our one of the colleague was saying just now, experiential learning, of course, definitely is the best, but at the same time now with this disruption in the technology, so this is really a big challenge. And then yes, we're trying our best, but still what we see now, whatever student at the university is the feeder from the secondary school. The secondary school, they are without exposure on all this technology, on this, is a real challenge to when they want to from the secondary school to the university. It is really a different learning culture, is a different experiential. So this is of real of challenge to us in the universities. So I don't know whether other people has experienced that. How do we really, that's why now I've been collaborating between, partnering between universities and the industry. But still, some of the industry also is having their challenges on all these challenge, the changing of the technology. So maybe we could, help each other. How do we want to help this situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Dato. I think an excellent point. I think Dato pointed out a few things, especially from a feeder system in Malaysia, which is basically from our secondary school or high school for starters, to the university. If the students from high school or secondary school are not well prepared, to actually take on to the university level will never get to, I guess, get to their full potential, right? When they get into university. So the question is that all the secondary school, most of the secondary school in Malaysia are also funded by the government, most of it, right? So in times of crisis, in times of pandemic, their budget is always an issue for all countries, even in the normal times. So I guess the question is how does industry and education institutions comes together, right, to prepare our next generations for the better, especially in the STEM area, right? Especially for Dr. Adi, she's very passionate about STEM, so she's the president for the National STEM Association. Future of any country, right? Without that, I think we're not going to have scientists and engineers and computer scientists in the future. So maybe over to Dr. Cram and Paul and also Boone or any of our professors and dean here can chip in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I speaking candidly, I think the funding issue is always one that comes up, right? In this particular instance, I would encourage Malaysia to speak with Dr. Cram and cut a deal. He's already built it. It's working, and it's been phenomenal. And I'm sure he'd be more than happy to talk university to, government or other universities. But I do believe, and I'm very serious about that, but I'm also deeply serious that, what we're seeing right now is the beginning of a new normal. And, we can all talk about, the nuance of the storytelling and the type of technology and how we do it. But I do believe that in the next several years, in fact, it won't be more than 2 or 3, there will be a critical mass of labs, experiences, and I'll call them learning objects, deeply threaded around curriculum in STEM and others, that themselves, because of their the ability to be delivered ubiquitously across the planet on relatively low-cost platforms, the uptake and consumption of that content will happen at a pace probably unheralded with any other technology rollout in education, much of it because of COVID. Also, because of that sort of vector happening, you're going to see a steep drop in price. As we all know, content, when it's in this form, is frictionless for delivery. And so the aggregation networks, the distribution networks, the monetization models, they all favor the lower cost jurisdictions, because ultimately once a material margin has been made, then all of a sudden, I don't want to call it surplus, but it gets to a point where the price narrows down. So I don't think you're too far off from seeing that. I mean, in the early days, I would encourage you to speak with Dave and Ryerson. They're an excellent institution and are prepared to talk in those ways. I mean, they're leading the charge here. But at the same time, this technology is going to proliferate. We see it every day. I see it every day. I know Dave hears about it every day. So, Dave, I don't know. Would you be willing to do a deal with Malaysia and STEM? Did he drop off?
We're
excited.
We're excited to partner with anybody that's motivated, and I think that it's great to imagine challenges that are different from the ones that we experience in downtown Toronto. But I mean, Dato, I feel your pain. Like I've taught in the university sector for 25 years, and I've come to the philosophical position of presuming that my students know nothing when they come into my class, or at least they haven't retained as much as I'd hoped. And that was the same with me when I was an undergrad. And the first time a prof, asked me to remember what happened in the class before, I couldn't believe it, that I was supposed to actually remember anything. So that is for sure a challenge that we all face. So like one of the things that I think has been a deep challenge with e-learning is that we're trying to take the experience in the real and map it one-to-one online. And I think that's probably where we're falling apart. Instead of thinking of ways that being online can enhance the experiential learning. So, Paul and I have kind of joked about, half jokingly, of the gamification of some of these learning outcomes. you know, when Pokemon Go was huge, right? There were kids all over the place, kind of with agency and putting themselves into the game, and that was so compelling. Like, and it got kids to walk. That was a great outcome as well. And so you can imagine that in a STEM learning environment as well, where, you know, not everything has to be a game, but since they've got their phones and they're used to using their phones for fun, like, why not try and make some of the learning outcomes achievable through a gamification, like a kind of hide and seek or whatever that is, so that they're better prepared when they come onto campus. And I think there's no reason why, other than financial resources, there's no reason this can't be applied in the kindergarten to 12 sector as well. And in some ways, the students' minds are a little more malleable there, and they might actually adopt to it more easily. Right. But I think probably universities and colleges will lead the way in this one, and the high schools will adopt more slowly. But everybody's got experience on their phone, so I think that's maybe one of the things that would balance this. No matter what kind of spectrum of experiences they've had in their high school, they know how to use their phone to have fun, and I think that, like, we can take advantage of that to keep them engaged.
Excellent point, Dr. Cram. I think Dr. Brian Imrie has some input. Go ahead, Dr. Brian.
Just building upon what Dato is saying and Dave is commenting on. I think the way forward, I would suggest, Dave, if you want to see this technology advance in Malaysia, and given the not just the short-term price pressures, but the structure of the industry here, the higher education industry here, you would be best to do one of two things. You either go to the Ministry of Higher Education, but the problem with that right now, I'm sorry to say, the leadership keeps changing. There's a lot of politics happening. Every time you turn around, we have no director or deputy director of higher education right now. Right. And that's replaced, having only been replaced a few months ago. So there is that issue. But that would be the best, go from the top down, but can be quite slow, right? But you need to also be aware that the higher education places in Malaysia, there's actually more in the private sector than the public sector. But in STEM, I think it's probably the reverse. Probably, okay? But the private sector has their own organization called MAPU, okay? Which is also another avenue to go. Okay, so you actually, because I'm a New Zealander, but I've been here a long time. And 11 years in Malaysia. I'm ex-UM, by the way, Dato. And what I've noticed is we all operate in silos. So as we're in New Zealand or Australia, library resources and everything are negotiated country to country. That doesn't happen in Malaysia. And that is a loss of efficiency, but it's, you know, the scale also is good for the provider. So that's what I would suggest. If you want to advance, is that you go through the Malaysia MAPCU, I think it is a private organization, private association, but better, of course, go to the government. But the government, being government anywhere, is a little slow.
Yeah, I agree with your ideas there. That's why under the National STEM Association, I see that the government keep on changing in Malaysia. So that's why now we work bottom up. You know, that's why in my organization, we do it from cradle to career. So our members, all people from the teachers, the universities, industry.
Dato, I think we maybe the line is a little bit lapsed.
And Thailand. So through this discussion, we could also collaborate with National STEM Association. I mean, how can we have some project, some initiative or ideas that we can work it out so that we be able to help each other in terms of usage of technology, or some of your experience at the different country, that we be able to work with National STEM Association. One of the projects that I'm doing now is called mentoring, where the mentor coming either from the graduate student as a mentor to the mentee for the school student, so that the feeder will be able to be continuously following. They have a chance to come to the university to see what they expected when they come to the universities, with the recent technology change, the hologram that you were saying just now, So, and then another term is the mentor is from the industry, and then they work with the undergraduates. So we develop entrepreneurial minds, in the sense that the student not only coming to become engineers, or to become medical doctor, or to become a programmer, or gamification, like what you mentioned. They also have the entrepreneurial minds, have some collaboration with the industry to do several internship. So that's why I'm also looking forward with this roundtable. We could collaborate and helps, because I'm working with all the public universities under NSA, and then about five private universities. So we see the challenges is there, and then someone was saying just now, we also work in silo. That's why under National STEM Association, we try to work as a team. It's not an easy thing, but I think this is the only thing that we could help Malaysia bottom up in terms of this disruption in the technology. So I really looking forward with this roundtable, we could work together, and we'll have sharing in order to see the best talent that we able to produce in STEM, science, technology, engineering. And the data show now in Malaysia, a lot of people don't believe that STEM is necessary in terms of doing successfully in the economic, in the industry, and so forth. So this is also that bothering me and my team, that they said, okay, we need to collaborate further and enhance with exposing our teachers, our lecturers, and with the new technologies and so forth. So back to you again.
Can I just share my view?
Sure, Prof. Please.
I'm associate professor from Tunku Abdul Rahman University College. We are one of the biggest IPTS in the country. Recently, starting from the year 2017, we actually initiated quite a number of projects using emerging technologies. So we actually gotten grant from government, 17 million, to work into a few areas. We work in agriculture 4.0, industrial 4.0. So we also created a virtual machine. It is the actual machine, but it's industrial 4.0 specification, follow Germany Rami's framework. And we actually have it live, mimic the real applications that requests come through handphone to our I2 hub called Integration Innovation Hub, and then come into our this plant, and that plant is a real plant with all industrial robot, and application will then change based on the requirement of the users. So we're trying to do a simulation unit, a prototype in our lab. So if it's not because of COVID, we should commission it in Q2 2020. But because of MCO, CMCO, and now MCO again, we have almost done the commissioning, waiting for testing. We actually do our software development at the middleware, AAS, the data assets conversion, all we've done it ourselves, and all up to the mobile application. Now we are very keen in doing application use cases, creating use cases. Industrial 4.0 is one of the projects in our RMK 11. We also have Agriculture 4.0, which I have also real showcases that we can use. And we have recently launched EuroLink that serves the community as also partly funded by Malaysian Productivity Cooperation. And that has already done the soft launch. Because of MCO again, we delayed, but MPC is very keen to do a real launch again when this MCO is over. Now I have another team, started AR, VR quite a few years using freeware. The progress is a bit slow. I actually see if we can have collaboration since this is a round table, and I see a lot of potential in AR, VR. And in Malaysia, everybody says AR, VR application is useful. And I recently attended a round table as well, organized by Huawei. And they also introduced the AR, VR tools for education as well, developed by Silverlake Media. It was a very useful and application ready for secondary school, also learning science. So I actually see this very, very useful. My team working more on gamification, AR, VR for gamification. And started last year, we also trying to look into using AR, VR for application. So I think in Malaysia, to be very practical, if you wanted to talk about inclusiveness and equality, follow the nation, the UN SDGs, our bandwidth may have some limitation for us to fully realize AR, VR. But I think this is definitely a trend. If 5G is coming, we need to create more better use case, for us to be ready. The moment that 5G comes to us, we can then jump onto it. Also 5G, we are going to set up a 5G lab in our campus, working with one of the Chinese company, doing a use case application as well. So I'm very keen to see how we can collaborate. I wanted to just focus on application. I understand that you are sharing your tools from Next Child, and I'm very keen to know, because we know tools is actually one of the limitations. Creating all the graphic behind is also very time consuming. But if you really wanted to make this a good application, we have to use it in one of the real applications that let people see it, the effect. And later we can see how we can put this into application. Actually, I'm very keen to know more about your platform, how far and how easy I can use it to create content, because I think the major interest of everybody, if I want to put this as a useful tool, is use cases and the content. So we are education institution. We have many lab sessions that urgently wanted to be converted into some better experience. Since now is MCO and CMCO time, I need to have a tools that enable me to be able to create lab session fast and easy, and do not need to spend a lot of time in drawing the graphic. So when I look at your demo, I have a feeling that maybe this is one of the tools that we can explore. Actually, today I have brought my deans of faculty of computer science and technology here with me. Jennifer, can you on your camera? So if I can request, for us to move forward, can I have a link for Jennifer to keep in touch? Introduce us more about the tools, the features, how much we can learn and use these tools, how soon we can use it to create use cases, and then we can have collaboration projects together, right? So we have two model of collaboration now with university. One is the talents development program. Once we link up, Jennifer will tell you more. I think with that talents development program, we can integrate your technology into one of our course, AR, VR course, for our interactive software technology program. And we can also come up a lot of practical as well as final year project or even postgraduate project that we can create showcases, actual showcases that can be used as a use case to tell people that these are some of the useful applications. I'm more keen to immediately work on a project. I think just now one of the panel members said rightly, because this has been bothering me. We have a big faculty on hospitality management. And because of MCO and CMCO, they just couldn't have practical session. But practical session is particularly important for such kind of program. So I have actually, when you were speaking, I have WeChat communication with Jennifer as well as our Perak branch campus. I'm thinking whether or not we can have a project, just to build, some of the showcases in that hospitality management application. So basically, this is what I have in mind. I hope this roundtable turns, into a useful collaboration. Jennifer is here. I'm also happy to be looked in, to know, to explore your tools more, and then to see how we can help to create content. At least we make a project up for us to have a showcase. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your wonderful input. In fact, actually, there was a questions that I was going to ask the CRAM as well. For your 40 lab stock CRAM that you have come up with, how long, and with 5 technicians, I heard, how long did it take you to come up with the 40 lab modules, and how long is each module, so that it can be a reference for Prof?
Yeah, so each module is representing a 3-hour lab, although it doesn't take them 3 hours to get through it, but it's that amount of content. I would say the first one took us a month to build as we were trying to get our minds around like
at least
the challenges, and now we're banging them out I don't know, like one every few days. And these technicians, they actually have full-time jobs doing other stuff as well. So they're probably putting in a couple of hours. The dream that Paul and I had that we haven't been able to realize yet is this is a really cool learning experience potential for students as well. We've just had to go hard with our technical staff to get these things out in time. But as far as the pipeline goes, I think there's a huge advantage to finding, training a trainer, and then for every one of those, you can probably have 20 students that are working on building exactly the content that you want. And it's their students will tend to be more natural at building 3D objects. The software is not that hard to learn. It's a little bit harder to learn the older you get, it seems, like most technology. So that's kind of what I see. For this to take off across the entire university and into other departments, we need to bring our students in as content creators, and they'll actually get learning experiences out of that. So, we would have them go through a kind of entrepreneurship innovation course, and they would get credit for this, for example. So they get a university credit to help build the content, and probably have insight into the content from a learner's point of view that a technician or a prof maybe doesn't, because we've always been on the other side of the learning equation. So I think when you get up to speed, these things can be developed quite quickly, but there is a learning curve for sure. But I'd bounce it over to Paul as far as what that connection with the learning curve would be through Nextech. I think it's imminently possible what you're asking as far as collaboration goes, for sure.
Yeah, I think. Thanks, Dave. And yeah, there's no question. With any new technology, right? It's there's a workflow and a pipeline from design, the development, the quality assurance, and the release cycles. So that just takes time. You've got to get that put into sort of a repeatable and scalable manner. Dave's completely right. If you can insource some of that development within your community, the benefits are many beyond just the cost savings. And so we'd definitely be happy to chat about that. I think we can socialize some contact information back and forth, and see what can kind of bubble out of that for sure. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking at. No question.
Right, and I like the point that Dr. Graham was saying that the university actually have a natural community, which is your students, that can actually be the best content creator, right? At the same time, to pick up a new skill, at the same time, come out with the content on the platform. And with that, can possibly also work with Datuk's National Staff Association, right? In terms of creating content
Totally.
for the country, and also collaborating with Ryerson in terms of what they've done. I guess if the world come together without having to repeat whatever has been created, I think every country or every university could have your place in terms of creating the content that you're strongest in, right?
Right.
For example, I think Dr. Brian Imrie earlier was talking about culinary, which I think Prof will talk about your hospitality, which is similar, right? You need hands-on. You need to learn how to do culinary skill, right? You can't just watch a video. You need to actually touch it, right? Hopefully, if you can. Yeah, so all this could be created using AR technology. Definitely nothing beats the actual live in-person experience. But I think the next best thing that we have at this time is actually using technology. But on top of that, I guess I think Brun was talking about earlier as well. Once we get the cost down, I think Paul has talked about it as well. With technology, you can actually scale it up. The cost per unit actually comes down tremendously, right? Yeah, so that will feed into Datuk's concern as well, right? Yeah, as more people use it, the per unit cost of the usage is scalable, and then the per unit cost actually comes down, right? Per population or per capita. So yeah, fantastic. I guess definitely we will take this to the next level. Back from maybe Dean Chen, any input or observation from you?
Hi, good morning. Can you
Hi,
hear?
morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would really love to continue our conversation, okay, to look into how we can work together, okay, with multiple parties. So at this moment, I hope that we will continue to have this conversation and to look into really potential and come up with a really great projects and a good use case like Dr. Ng mentioned. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dean Chen. All right. Yeah, so I'm cognizant of the time. We're at about 10:54 a.m. right now. So in order not to hold everyone, we will actually Prof, yeah, there, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. Do you have anything that you want to comment before we close off? But we were promised to continue, right? This is just the beginning of our engagement and conversation. Yeah. Prof, anything that you want to comment?
Yes, I'm the Associate Professor and Deputy Head of Department from the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering from Ryerson University. So it's a very good, thought-provoking session, I would say. Right? Thank you all the panel, so the guests for sharing. And I also agree very much with what Dr. Brian shared. It can be an immersive experience and engaging experience, especially in the practical kind of culinary courses, programs. And I also agree very much with Prof. Lau, because I think all of us, we are in the Malaysia, we know the pain that we are going through in this COVID-19, during the pandemic, we experience the pain of going through with the online session with students. Okay, so and yes, we have e-learning. All this while we have e-learning, and this point I agree very much with Prof. Lau, is because we don't seem to maximize the full potential of e-learning, right? And then I think we have to properly plan for the transformation. We know the disruption is important, but we have to see, how we can achieve the milestone, given what kind of timeline, that we are looking at. Since I don't think a lot of the university will have a very good funding, to be able to launch the lab straight away. Like what Dr. Ng has shared just now, it's very great that you can have this plan to collaborate with our panels here, to kickstart something that is going to benefit the students, right? So we are also looking at the effort transformation plan, properly, like what is the challenges? Maybe there could be a lot of challenges in the implementation. So maybe I would like to hear from the panels, like what are the challenges, when you plan for it, and how you deliver it, because a lot of students or a lot of the staff, they may not be well versed in this, in using this technology, right? As what Dato Norani has shared, how to expose students and teachers, in using the tools. Okay, and then another thing is that I would like to ask, what is the implication? I also resonate very much with Kun. You mentioned that you would choose who has selected 3 courses from MIT or Harvard, and then a combination of them, and then you think that he is having more exposure, okay, and then you will choose him rather than choose a full degree from a university, right? But okay, but what would be the implication, because when we launch this, we do online session, for this for the whole year round, right? Sometimes we will see that the student is not doing the assessment themselves, they would get someone else to do the assessment, and then they get a certificate. Maybe they pay someone else to do the work, and then they get a certification. And because this is online, they are hiding behind, so we cannot see them. Can we have a discussion on how do we ensure the ethics, ethical point of view, right? And then how if AR or VR able to come up with some idea on catching the misconduct, right? Or can we, because the learning experience, I think this is fantastic, right? And it enrich the psychomotor side. For what we can't do nowadays, we also, students are also complaining they can't make their hands dirty, they cannot do hands-on. So this definitely enrich the portions that we cannot do now, especially on the psychomotor and practical side. But what is the implication, whether can we, enhance the maybe final exam, or how do we enhance to the ethical perspective or experience, catching misconduct, something like that. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you for sharing.
Right, Prof. Wong, thank you. Dr. Kram, maybe there are any thoughts in terms of authenticity or in terms of taking online exam? How does Canada or Ryerson do it when it's online exam?
Yeah, we know there's no way to actually have the same sort of assessments online as you can in the real. Like, students are so smart at cheating that there's no way to defeat them. and I think it's a lost game to think that we can assess in the same way and defeat that. But like, the one thing that I'm learning about AR that could help with some of that is this ability to have an object that you want a student to observe and then describe what they're observing. Because each is going to hold it in a different way. They're going to have their phone. Like, I guess they could have a friend doing that for them. But at least it's like changing the exam question for every student, which is the only way that people have suggested that you can beat online cheating, is just to have every question different for students. So in a sense, the student's experience with a 3D object, each student will have that differently, and you get them to write about their observations. I think it's really hard to do things like where there's equations and solving problems. There's just so many ways that they can cheat right now on that, that it's really hard to defeat. As far as adoption of the technology, I think we've been forced into it. So like what the profs seem to like is that it's One thing to look at that's consistent, so they're not having to reinvent for each lab that they do a whole new platform for how to get those labs online. They can have input into the content of the lab and the storyboard, but they don't have to worry about creating it. And that's been a real big step in the adoption of this, and that it looks consistent. They really like that as well. So like all our science labs go through this platform, basically this portal into the lab experience, and that seems to have helped professors get their minds around adopting it as well.
Excellent point. Paul, anything else to add in terms of the creation part?
You know, in general terms, no. You know, the truth of it is, you know, I love Dave's, you know, idea of sort of insourcing some of the build within the student community for a variety of reasons. But, you know, I know firsthand adoption of this with the cohort that are in sort of, I'll call it year 1 to maybe year 4 within higher education is almost a no-brainer. You know, we at, you know, my age anyways, in the mid 50s, you know, I would be challenged even with that degree in computer science to put myself on TikTok. Yet kids 5 years, you know, they're doing it all day long. I mean, there's guys making a ton of money at it. So, you know, trust me, the kids have figured out the phone, right? and they will use it. So adoption is really not an issue from that point of view. What's I think more important is just being able to release it into your student community in a measured way to get the students' feedback on what's working, what's not working, and then, you know, just continually iterate that. And then, you know, over a short period, perhaps a term or two, you'll know what works and what doesn't, and you'll be successful from there. And, you know, that's a kind of somewhat obvious approach, but it does work. Yeah.
Excellent, Paul. All right, it's already 11:03. Yes,
I just want to pop like one idea that we haven't talked about, and like I don't want to start another half-hour conversation, but there's the whole side of real-time analytics that you can do as well. So you can track engagements in real time, and you can see in that sense what's working, at least from how long the student is sitting on the thing that you think it's capturing their attention. So that opens up a whole other area of examining what you're doing pedagogically speaking as well. And it's something that I unfortunately forget about all the time because I'm so into the like real part of the learning. But the data analytics is something that we're going to start to explore as well. And that's something to think about for everybody that's thinking of adopting this kind of approach. So sorry for jumping in on you. I just wanted to make sure that we put that one across too.
No, Dr. Cram, that's an excellent point. Yeah, in fact, I just have a message from Prof. Lau. He has to go for another meeting, but he looked forward to a further discussion actually together to actually explore further. So with that, I'm also cognizant of the time in Toronto, in North America right now, which is already about 10 a.m., depending on which time zone you're in. So I would like to close off the roundtable, but hopefully this is just the first of the hopefully many more that we can come together, as Dato has mentioned, right? I think it's for Malaysia, it's probably a national challenge that we need to come together as well. It's not just an individual university, yeah. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us today, especially our wonderful panelists all the way from North America, from Singapore, and our wonderful guests, especially Dato, Prof. Wong, Prof. Dean, Jennifer, and the rest. So we hope you have enjoyed today's session as much as we have enjoyed hosting you. As Albert Einstein once said, right? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, right? So higher education needs to adopt, adapt, and transform with the new reality. So I guess we all have to be agile. I guess be bold, be creative, take on the disruption happening in the higher education and the world right now. But in every crisis, as we always say, lies great opportunity, right? So while the playbook for the future of higher education is still being written, the only concept in this fast changing environment is a change itself, right? By the way, Dr. Clem, I went to Queen's actually. So this was from one of my prof when I first year in my Queen's year. All right, so Dato, thank you, Prof, and also definitely Dr. Karam, Paul, Boone, thank you so much, and for coming together. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to see you, seeing everyone in our future roundtables, but we definitely will do a follow up with each one of you to see how do we take it to how do we take the next step. Yeah. So despite what's going on in the world today, keep the spirit up, stay safe, stay awesome, keep well, no matter where you are, and we shall see you again.
Thank you.
Terima kasih.
Thank
Xie
you.
and
Terima
Kendrick.
kasih.
Merci for Canada.
Bye
Goodbye
bye.
and good
Bye-bye.
night for now.
Bye.